is another local boy, born in Lewiston, I believe. Lives in Bristol now. He's a Lincoln County resident, has been for a few years now. I met him at a dinner at Broad Arrow. How many here have been to Broad Arrow? Yeah. So they do these occasional dinners, and it's sort of, there's small inner space in the winter. They'll put out 4 or 5 tables. Communal seating, you sit down, you don't know who you're going to sit with. I sat down at a table with my party, and this fellow was across the way. So we got to know each other a little over dinner. I don't know, it was 3 hours or so. I was amazed by the time I left that someone who had his sort of resume in Washington and had his hand on the pulse of political power in America was a neighbor, and I didn't know it. Jordan was one of the individuals who was around when End Citizens United was passed. For those of you who are old enough to remember, that was a major Supreme Court decision which triggered a sequence of actions in this country that led to excessive corporate funding in politics. Companies could buy regulators now. Companies could buy policy now. And I believe that we are largely in the position we're in today because of that decision. Money in politics has gotten out of hand. And Citizens United was founded, thank you, Jordan, and your colleagues, to try and address that. And for those of you who've been active in politics for the last 20 years, you'll know Edison and Citizens United, very successful, generated a lot of traction in the public sphere for outrage against that decision. He left that job to join Katie Porter of the Whiteboard fame. Yay! As her chief of staff in Washington. And then, thank you. And then moved on to start another nonprofit called Democracy First. And I hope Jordan talks a little about what Democracy First has done for the last couple of years, especially leading up to the 2024 election, because I think that had a big impact as well. So Jordan, thank you very much. I hope I didn't steal your topic.
Thank you, Stephen. To start, I just want to give if we could just give a big round of applause to Stephen and Nigel and all the people who helped organize this event. It doesn't happen on its own. I also want to thank the Sheriff's Department for being here and the town of Boothbay for letting us use this space. Nigel's words were so important because he reminds us that the right to demonstrate and show up and have our voices heard is something that can be taken away. And when democracy is under threat and at risk, it is. So we've got to take advantage of this opportunity when we can and not let it go. Mm-hmm. I was born in Lewiston, and Maine has such a rich tradition of demonstration and protesting when bullies come after us. And the first demonstration I ever went to was in 2003 because there was a group of neo-Nazis from away that were going to have a demonstration in Lewiston. 15 people showed up to theirs. The counter-protest in Lewiston had 5,000 people. 5,000. That's who we are as Mainers. We stand up to bullies. We don't give in to them. In this moment in our history is a time for courage, not concern. It is a time to stand up and have our voices heard and defend democracy, not appease authoritarians or would-be kings and dictators. As Stephen mentioned, I founded a group called Democracy First, and I started that organization after January 6th, which I spent barricaded in our office on Capitol Hill while violent insurrectionists tried to overturn the free and fair election and legitimate result. And we came through that and certified that election, but it was such a stark example that I had firsthand exposure to of how fragile our democracy is, how reliant we are on norms and institutions that will not protect us, and that we have lost a consensus over the most core democratic principles, the rules of our democracy that we all have to follow to continue. And these principles, there are only 4 of them that we support at Democracy First. They're not Democratic or Republican, they're not conservative or liberal. They're just the rules that we have to follow to continue as a country. The right to vote for eligible citizens. Denouncing political violence against opponents or election workers. Stopping the spread of misinformation about our elections, and accepting the outcome of our elections when all the votes have been counted, and supporting the peaceful transfer of power. These are principles that all Americans really support, but we do not have elected officials with the courage to always defend them. And we also have a president in the White House now who openly rejects and subverts all 4 of those principles. And there's a reason for that, because democracy is our form of accountability when elected officials do not serve us, do not work for us, and cater to donors and the powerful. Democracy is how we get them out of office and get leaders in that will do what we need them to do. And Trump is threatened by that. And that is why we've got to make sure that these principles are never lost. Donald Trump not only rejects these principles, but he goes further. He promotes political violence, and that's why the first thing he did when he was elected was pardon all of the January 6th insurrectionists. These were not people that were at the wrong place at the wrong time. There were some people pardoned who weren't even there on January 6th because they had already been arrested for orchestrating the event. He is now musing at running for a 3rd term. And anybody who doubts that he would try to do something that has not been paying attention for the past 8 years. He now is ignoring the Supreme Court. And he is abusing his power and bullying our colleges and universities, law firms and businesses, and even the state of Maine. I want to take a minute to recognize and thank our governor, who has given us so much hope and inspiration that we need to stand up to bullies. And I think for many of us Mainers, I wouldn't have expected Janet Mills to do anything else. It should not be a surprise that she did this, and we should expect that type of attitude and behavior and response from everyone we send to Washington. And Janet Mills is following a rich and proud tradition we have. Although we are a small state, we do big things, and we have leaders that stand up and they have the courage to defend our country when it's under threat. From Joshua Chamberlain to Margaret Chase Smith.
Yay!
To Shenna Bellows.
Yay!
This weekend marks 250 years since the ride of Paul Revere and the shot heard around the world at the Battle of Lexington and Concord. This revolution that put us on the path to democracy is so important to remember in this moment 250 years later, because it has never been more under threat. And we are so fortunate and lucky in Lincoln County to have one of my favorite residents here, Heather Cox Richardson. I'm sure, like many of you, I read her every morning. And one thing that she reminds us of is that we've been through times like this before. We come out on the other side, but we come out on the other side because everyday Americans and citizens stood up for what was right. They defended our country and our democracy and kept it going. And we need that again today. She also reminds us in these most trying periods of time, What distinguishes our leaders is not ideology or party affiliation, it's courage and having the willingness to fight back. To not appease authoritarians and those in the wrong, and we have seen that before, and that's the difference we need to expect from our leaders, is to fight and not give in. So we also need to remember that democracy is not a starting point. What the path we were put on 250 years ago was not a perfect democracy. We didn't give the right to vote to non-white citizens till 150 years ago. Women were not given the right to vote over 100 years ago. So we are always improving and reforming our democracy, and we should not be the defenders of a status quo, but work to make a democracy that the American people can trust again, that they have faith in. And we can do that, and we must do that. So thank you all for showing up today. It is such an inspiration, and I know for everyone driving by too, it's hard to measure the effect that we have in reminding people of what's at stake. And we all need to think to ourselves, what can we do other than show up today? Volunteering on a campaign, helping elect more pro-democracy candidates who have the courage to do this, running for office yourself, contributing to a campaign, calling your member of Congress. Please call our senators. We need more courage from them. And I think together, in solidarity, we will get through this. America will continue on, but it's going to take all of us. Democracy does not defend itself. It requires its citizens to stand up and defend it. So thank you all for being here.